yesterday, but this time really emphasizing it. The Dodgers aren't the villain here. If anything, they might be the heroes. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. I'm going to phrase this differently today in hopes that it'll really resonate. What the Dodgers did, and this part I did say yesterday, didn't break any rules, didn't violate any ethics, even the deferment stuff. You know, we hail NFL general managers who are really clever and adept at working with that league's very complicated cap. This isn't any different, except that there's no cap. Dodgers worked within the system. The Dodgers got themselves a mega beyond belief local television contract, and the Dodgers found a way to spend $1 gazillion on back-to-back championships. $1.2 billion into the contracts of the pitchers they used in Game 7 alone. Just had to throw that one in there. Also, not in violation of anything. I further made the point that the Dodgers, in a cap system that would look very similar to the one that's used by both the NFL and the NHL, I believe would be a very good team, wholly independent of the super high-priced free agents they have. And that's because they have a reputation throughout the baseball industry as being really, really smart in terms of their amateur acquisition, their minor league development, their instruction. Now, that's not why they're winning World Series, but it would immensely benefit them in a true cap system. Whereas, here we go, ready? Let's snap our magical fingers and presume that there's a salary cap system in place right now. Right now. No fuss, no muss. We just conjured it up for the purposes of this episode. And Ben Cherington is your leader of baseball ops. And let's say that this salary cap system has set up a range that everybody has to spend inside of $200 million at the ceiling, $180 at the floor. And the Pirates, who just spent $89, are now required, it's mandatory, that they spend an additional $100 million on payroll like this heading into the 2026 season. I'm going to be honest with you. This is the way I probably ought to start explaining this stuff in the future because my other methods aren't working. The same questions keep getting asked over and over and over again. So we're going to do it this way. $200 million ceiling, $180 floor. Cherington has to go out and spend $100 million toward the 2026 payroll. It's not like total contract commitment, multiple years. That's how much payroll has to be added. And the Pirates, of course, will have more such room than most teams. In fact, more than almost all of them. Whereas teams like the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees and a handful of others are going to have to cut their way down below $200 million. In parentheses, yes, there's a way to do that, even with the massive bloating of the Dodgers payroll and deferments and all that other stuff. You just grandfather it into the agreement. It's not anywhere near as complicated as it might seem, and it's absolutely not a deal breaker as some have attempted to portray. Bottom line, what's Ben going to go get? What's he going to go get for $100 million? Think about that just for a split second, if you will. Because you're going to want, in that scenario, to get hitters. Why? Because the Pirates have almost none. And you're going to have in charge someone who can't identify hitting. And what'll happen is he'll go out and grossly overspend on bad hitting as opposed to just, getting the bad hitting he gets now that'll still look like a rotten deal, even if it's just a 1 year $5 million or a 1 year $10 million or something in that scope. And that in turn will get him embarrassed more quickly and more roundly than is possible now. So, for example, the Pirates get put into a spot where they can actually outbid most teams. I know this all sounds nuts, but it's happened in every other league, so ride with me. And you've got, among others in this class coming up, free agents, Pete Alonso, Cody Bellinger, Alex Bregman, Bo Bichette, Kyle Tucker. There are real live hitters there. The first thing that you're going to see, the first symptom of, oh, wow, he really shouldn't be overseeing this, is that Cherington won't feel comfortable spending in that range. That is true of executives who've never done it. Those who move, let's say, from a situation like the Rays and then go to the Yankees, they don't succeed. They don't just find it in themselves to go hand somebody a $30 million a year deal. I'm convinced Cherington breaks into hives at the thought of a $3 million deal. And I've long since been convinced that he's not just that way because the owner is cheap. The owner is cheap, but the GM's got that in his DNA as well. Remind me someday to do a whole show on that one. And what'll happen is the Pirates will then tie themselves into bad contracts that were signed in a hurry by an incompetent executive. And they'll be locked into these in a salary cap system for way too long. So to those who come back at me about how the cap system won't save the Pirates, as if they're somehow offering a stance that's different from my own, here, take this. The Pirates, under this management and this ownership, would be terrible in a salary cap system. So when I advocate for this, believe me, it's wholly independent of who's running the Pirates right now. When we come back, J1Q. If you're looking for a great dining experience, look no further than North Shore Tavern, located directly across Federal Street from PNC Park, next door to Mike's Beer Bar. North Shore Tavern is Pittsburgh's home for steak on a stone. Enjoy your steak finished on a hot lava stone in front of you, where you ensure each piece is cooked to exactly your liking. Or try their rotating selection of entrees, hot sandwiches, salads, and burgers, all while enjoying the ambiance dedicated to the great players and history of the Pittsburgh Pirates all around you. Come see why everyone's talking about North Shore Tavern and steak on a stone.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Data brokers can compile your name, contact info, social security number, home address, even information about your family members, and they can sell it online. Have you ever been a victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Our listeners get a special discount. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/hit. Use promo code HIT at checkout. That's HIT. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/hit and enter HIT at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/hit, code HIT. Today's J1Q comes from Viz, and I chose it not to pick on Viz, but because it's a perfect example of what I mentioned in the opening segment about how no matter how often I say something on this show about the cap, it really doesn't make it all the way through. Viz, you are far from alone on this, because people have been told certain things about the cap system for years and years and years and years. And it takes a lot to understand that a lot of what it is that they've been told or learned on their own is just wrong, like completely provably, demonstrably wrong. So, Viz's question. If the salary cap goes in, please, 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 and the obvious salary floor, what does that do to perennial non-spenders like the Pirates and Bob Nutting? Do they take a loss? Does it force owners like that to sell? And the answer that I have for this is the same one, obviously, that I've had for a long, long time now. And like I did in the opening segment, I'm going to try to put it into real world terms, but only after I repeat that a salary cap system comes with 3 components: ceiling, floor, that's why you never have to say it, and a greatly expanded revenue sharing. That, Viz, is where the money comes from. If more of the local revenues than ever are put into one pile, then there's plenty enough money by requirement for everybody to be able to spend into that range. The next thing that comes up, and after this I'll give the example, is, well, what if there's a huge gap between the ceiling and the floor? Then won't Nutting just cheap out and be at the floor because that's who he is? Well, he can. Anybody can. But the range is so tight that for the most part, it's immaterial. In the NFL, it's around $20 million. In the NHL, it's around $20 million. Meaning one is the ceiling and the other is the floor. And when you're up there in that stratosphere, I'm going to go back to the examples that I was using of a $200 million ceiling and a $180 million floor. Hey, that's one really good player. That's not really much of a difference. And when you factor in that some teams are by nature going to prefer to build their rosters through the draft and youth just because it's what they believe in, not because they lack revenues, then your roster, again, just through osmosis, is going to have a lot of lower paid players. But then what you have to do is fill the rest of the roster with, higher paid players. So let's say, for example, the Pirates have, and I'm being extremely hypothetical here, they were to have some incredibly loaded system, meaning of hitters, not just Connor Griffin and not another soul. You had like 6 or 7 guys and you're like, I don't want to give these players up. We believe in them. We think they should be Pirates for life. What you have to do to compensate for that on the roster is say, all right, we're required to spend this other money somewhere. Where are we going to spend it? Let's go get some super spectacular relief pitcher or something. You see teams, this happens more in the NHL than it does in the NFL, that'll just go out and pick up a contract from somewhere. It's an unattractive contract. A player that they really can't use, in some cases a player who's actually done with the sport, but is injured and thus can't perform. They'll take that contract off the other team's hands just to make sure they can fit within that $20 million range. Still got to spend the money. It's a totally different world. And while I understand if you're a baseball fan, and predominantly a baseball fan, that this all seems insane, it seems like a pipe dream, it's how everybody else is already doing it. Nothing is being invented. I appreciate hearing from you, Viz. I appreciate you allowing me to use your question, hopefully as an educational example. And we'll hook up again with everybody tomorrow.